All right, two things I want to talk about this week. The first involves the PlayStation 5 Pro. It looks like reviews have dropped. Outlets and reviewers and stuff have gotten their hands on the hardware, and the response is pretty much what I think a lot of us were expecting, but I still think there's some interesting things to talk about within it. I'll link all the stuff I talk about in the description down below. Of course, the big one, the one that everybody ran to, is a Digital Foundry. The tech nerds, the pixel counters over there, the frame counters, had a lot to say about it, some good, some bad. One of the more interesting things I like that they pointed out was that the PS5 Pro is technically smaller than a launch PS5, and along with that, it makes these new powerful upgrades without being like a power-hungry machine or like something super loud, which I appreciate as like a design hardware nerd. In terms of PSSR and like post-processing stuff, they said it works well, but the more interesting thing that caught my eye is, and I quote, "A PS5 Pro's GPU clocks are much the same as the standard model. We must assume that Game Boost is instead using all of the new compute units in the way that the PS4 Pro did not, as the increases are substantial. The bottom line is that a lot of the PS5 games we tested show an increase of around 30 to 35% in extra performance." Shout out to Okami on Twitter, or Okami, for collecting a bunch of kind of rough general assessments or performance boosts from all these reviews. Metaphor ReFantazio now runs at a near locked 60 frames per second. Silent Hill 2's stutter is mostly eliminated with the Game Boost option and just runs better in both modes. With Digital Foundry saying, and I quote, "That's enough to make a wobbly 60 FPS mode run much more consistently." The biggest boost from games may come from the 120 Hertz game modes. Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition seems to show anything from a 30 to 50% performance improvements in like-for-like content. Along with that, reviews pointed out PSSR, or like this, dynamic AI upscaling, working out really well for games like Stellar Blade being noticeable, as well as The Last of Us Part 1 and Spider-Man 2 now having those like fully reflective or like ray trace puddles. So Puddlegate is over. Smaller things, reviews pointed out Black Myth Wukong roughly only getting 10 to 15 frames per second improvement with Game Boost only. And the drawbacks, according to this report, are some early image quality issues to work out with PSSR in certain games like Alan Wake 2 and Dragon's Dogma 2. CPU heavy games like Baldur's Gate 3 still have performance issues with only minor gains despite being Pro enhanced, and some unpatched games show little improvement because the DRS is favoring higher resolution over frame rate, with Final Fantasy 16 being the example. So the Game Boost part is interesting. It seems like it can make a big difference or somewhat of a difference, and then of course there's like the whole list of those PS5 Pro specifically enhanced games. Sony actually came out with the list this week. It's kind of long. It's like 50 games, so I'm not going to read them all. But these are the ones that are really taking advantage of all the stuff, like the ray tracing, the PSSR, better frame rates, 60 to 120 hertz. And of the ones I want to check out, it's definitely going to be like Alan Wake 2, Black Ops 6, Lies of P, Spider-Man, Hogwarts Legacy. Apparently that's where the ray tracing you can actually notice it. But one of the interesting lines I saw from one of the reviews comes from The Verge that kind of states, like, unless you are really prepared for this thing, like if you have like one of the best TVs or monitors and it's really big, then it's not worth it. They say, and I quote, "Find your favorite seat in front of the TV, then measure the distance between your head and the screen. Now measure your screen diagonally. Do you own a 65-inch or 55-inch TV, the most popular sizes? Do you sit 10 feet away or more? Then no, the PS5 Pro is probably not worth $700, not even if you have 20/20 vision. The improved visual fidelity just isn't tangible enough at that distance." They continued though and said that with some games, playing the original PS5 could feel like looking through a dirty window. The PS5 Pro has the power to wipe that window clean. So for me personally, my main living room TV is like a nice TV. It's a 65-inch OLED, so I can really kind of get the maximum power out of this thing. I can take advantage of the higher refresh modes and stuff like that. But for me, like, yes, the like couple of bits of better frame rate here and there are good. Like, Game Boost on some of these things are cool, yes, but I'm curious to see how much that PSSR really makes a difference, because more and more, as more games have been getting advanced in this console generation, some games have been looking fuzzy on the performance mode because they have to scale down the resolution to get higher frame rate. So I'm really hoping that PSSR can just do a good job of seamlessly combating that. That's the thing, is that a lot of this stuff is a little bit more subtle if you're not like a nerd, like chances are if you're watching this right now, you care about this stuff. But if you don't, it's a tough sell. It also takes a while to explain, like to the average consumer. It's like, well, there's this stuff, there's ray tracing. People go, what is ray tracing? Okay, it's shinier puddles and better light. Okay, cool. What is PSSR? Well, resolution, and then it's confusing for some people. So it comes back to what I've been saying with it when it was announced and like with the price and everything. It's like you have to have a lot of expendable income. You have to be a hardcore enthusiast. You also have a good enough TV or monitor to take advantage of it. And it ends up being pretty expensive all in. And I'm still like, if you have the opportunity or if you live in a region where you can, the PC is always also an enticing option because within the PC ecosystem, you just have a lot more options and choice and games to play. Still, I'm just excited to get my hands on one. I like reviewing tech very much. In a past life, I would have been like a tech YouTuber or something like that. But on Game Ranks, we always do hardware reviews for the big stuff. So we're going to get our hands on it when we can. I don't know when it's going to ship. I pre-ordered one. Like, we're not getting a review unit or anything like that. We're not cool enough. So I'm looking forward to diving in and judging for myself because the reviews are really interesting. They've been fun to read through. Digital Foundries I really like because they have the goods and they have the bads. None of them are really like amazingly glowing. Like, it's a game changer overall. But I think for some of the nerds out there who, again, have the cash and the other surrounding tech or living room setup to really keep up with this, it can be interesting. Hey, now before we keep going, a word from the sponsor of this video, Bombas. Not only do they make a bunch of high quality and comfortable products, but for me personally, I'm all about the socks. I literally just pulled these off my feet. These are the comfiest socks I have ever worn. Bombas is all about design and designing for comfort. So like their socks don't have seams in them. Their t-shirts don't have those itchy tags. They've been all about quality for years now, and I will totally admit straight up, we have been a Bombas house for a while. My wife tuned me into them, and when they contacted us, I was like, yes, this is a no-brainer. So if I do look very comfortable right now, it's because of how I'm feeling. It's the socks on my feet. But Bombas is all about feeling good while also doing good. Thanks to their policy, one purchased equals one donated. Bombas actually makes the top 3 things requested most in homeless shelters: socks, shirts, and underwear. So they donated over 100 million essential clothing items to places all over the 50 states. That is awesome. And again, I want to emphasize along with that, I actually think their products are 100% quality. And the best thing is that they also have a 100% happiness guarantee. So you can check them out. And if you do want to check them out, it helps the show. There's going to be a QR code on screen. You can also go to bombas.com/onjake20. And when you're there, use code at checkout onjake20 for 20% off your first purchase. Again, that's bombas.com/onjake20, and then use the code at checkout onjake20 for 20% off your first purchase. And big thanks again to Bombas for sponsoring these videos. And if you are new here, welcome to Two Things. This is where every Wednesday I put out a video on this channel. I put out videos whenever, but on Wednesdays I do a news dive. On the Friday news show on Game Ranks, like that channel, I do the news roundup where I talk about all the news. Here on Wednesdays, I like to dive into 1 or 2 stories that I just find personally more interesting, or I want to talk about a little bit more. This next story involves Nintendo. Nintendo has been pretty upfront now about the next Nintendo Switch. And I'm glad that they've been pretty upfront with this. There's 2 bits to this story. The first involves an online press conference where like Nintendo just stressed, they reiterated once again that it still plans to announce its next console before the end of the current fiscal year, which ends on March 31st, 2025. The quote from Nintendo head Furukawa, like when all the earnings stuff was announced, was interesting. He said, "For a platform that is in its 8th year in the market, both hardware and software enjoy stable demand and brisk sales." So yes, obviously he still wants these things to sell. They're still on shelves and they're still making games for it. Mario and Luigi Brothership just came out. But they're starting to actually talk about it. They're getting a little bit more upfront about it now. And something I thought was pretty interesting, in the heat of the election madness, the news cycle, it was chaos, election night was going down, Nintendo decided to take to its social media to post and say, hey, pardon the interruption, everybody in America, but this is Furukawa. At today's corporate management policy briefing, we announced that Nintendo Switch software will also be playable on the successor to Nintendo Switch. Nintendo Switch Online Online will be available on the successor to Nintendo Switch as well. Further information about the successor to Nintendo Switch, including its compatibility with Nintendo Switch, will be announced at a later date. At this point, it's like they just keep saying Nintendo Switch successor. It's like, maybe you should just put out the name now if you're going to start talking about it. But I love this statement because I like how Nintendo does the post where it's like, hey, this is so-and-so. Like it was Furukawa, like how sometimes Miyamoto will be like, hey, it's Miyamoto on the account. It's just funny that it came out like an interrupting Metal Gear codec call during a pretty crazy like US election news cycle. Just like, this is Furukawa. I don't know. I just thought it was funny. But this is actually significant. Some people are saying like, yeah, duh. But this is technically new for Nintendo. Nintendo has not always had the best track record with compatibility or backwards compatibility. Most of the times, especially once they were starting to do digital stuff in their digital storefronts, the shit you bought would not go to the next thing. I had been burned many, many times before. The Wii, the 3DS, the Wii U, that stuff did not shake out well. So I'm glad that now Nintendo is seemingly doing the right thing. Like I think as much as I'm not like the most digital purchase guy, I think customers at this point want to invest in a library and like an account for the long term. It's a no-brainer. They've been really behind on this, so I'm not gonna like be like, oh my God, thank you, but like more like it's about time. Good job, guys. I think that also shows that the next Nintendo Switch obviously is going to run on a similar architecture, similar type thing, maybe even like a similar UI presentation setup, no crazy, absolute world-changing new gimmick to it because the old games need to run on this new thing. That's really all I can extrapolate from this. But I do really like that they are finally like really genuinely talking about it, now taking to social media to post about it more. But I'm curious to see when the actual announcement is going to happen. Some people are still thinking it's going to be this year. And I don't know. I really don't think it's going to be, because at this point it's November and, you know, there's a lot of things ramping up, not to mention the fact that like Black Friday and sales for the holidays, I would assume they still want to move some Nintendo Switches. Obviously, sales are like lower than they have been, but like I think they still want to move what they got, that current inventory. So I don't expect them to announce it like in November or maybe December. I don't know. Nintendo's also weird. That's the other thing I want to reiterate. They are more unpredictable. Again, I keep bringing it up, but they announced this stupid alarm clock, which I used once. And as soon as it went off, my wife was like, nope, absolutely not. And I was like, I agree. This is terrible. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm looking forward to talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever it's called, because like I love the Nintendo Switch hardware. So I want to see what they got next. I want to see the next generation, the evolution of that, because the thing is pretty long in the teeth now at this point. Those are the two things I wanted to talk about this week. A little bonus for you is I checked out Metro Awakening for Game Ranks, the before you buy. This is the PSVR or PCVR or Quest Metro game. It's a full-ass Metro game with its own story and everything like that. The story I wasn't super into, and to be honest, I wasn't into too much of like the level design or like the objective design. What you're doing got a little old after a while. But at the very least, what I can say, like if you're a VR person or you're considering it, maybe get it on sale at some point, because I think they translated the moment-to-moment Metro gameplay or feeling really well to VR. You're creeping around a vent shaft with your little lighter and like you hear a creature howling. I'm sorry if I'm repeating some of this from the before you buy, but like that stuff works. The survival horror desperation works. It's you in a dirty underground tunnel versus like 3 bandits or something, and you're firing and your gun, there's recoil and you have to be so accurate. The aiming is razor thin here and bullets are so limited. The amount of time you'll have your gun out, you'll fire at a monster desperately and then click, click, you're out. It's unpredictable as hell in that way that you should feel stressed out and scrambly in a survival horror game. It also has straight up like Last of Us backpack inventory management, which I really like. Like you will pull off your backpack. You can see all your shit hanging off your backpack. You can take the gas mask off, put it on your face. Your extra filters you can take off the backpack and put them on the gas mask. That stuff is really creative and fun. It's a little glitchy and some of the grabbing stuff didn't work out for me. So again, the game has issues. It has flaws. So I don't know if you should run out and buy it right now, but I think it's something cool to consider. And honestly, I just like talking about VR. I've been able to get away with it a little bit more here and there. The problem is that people don't watch it. People don't click on it. People don't care. But between Batman Arkham Shadow, which I love so much. And this, it's been exciting. It's been interesting to talk about some of this stuff. Can I dive into some of the indies that I think are really cool right now? No, but we'll have to just see how it goes. There's another big one coming out soon, Skydance's Behemoth. So we'll just wait and see. But I've yapped enough. I've kept you here long enough. Thank you for talking and yapping about some gaming news stuff here with me. Keeping it light. I'm just talking about stuff I like, stuff I find interesting. So I want to hear from you guys in the comments. What do you think about the PS5 Pro reviews? Did you dive in like me? Did you read them all this morning over a cup of coffee? Are you too online? Are you buying one? Did you have one pre-ordered? Did this convince you? I want to know what you're genuinely thinking. But also, of course, with Nintendo. What do you want from the Switch 2 or whatever it is? Are you glad it's backward compatible? I would hope you are, but let's talk about this stuff. I want to hear from you guys. You know, you can find me on social like Instagram and stuff at Jake Baldino, but thank you for watching. Clicking the like button helps me. I'm just trying to talk about stuff and have fun and be normal. So thank you, but thank you for watching. Subscribe because video games, pizza's on me.